You bought Shreddage, or you're thinking about buying Shreddage, and you just can't figure out how to get this sound. I'm going to go over some critical tips for how I write with Shreddage and how I get these sounds out of Shreddage. I can't say that you won't get a better sound, and I can't say that I'm using Shreddage correctly, but if you like how my tracks are sounding, these tips are going to hopefully help you get there. This isn't a comprehensive tutorial, but Impact Soundworks actually has a very good playlist on YouTube that'll actually teach you the basics all the way up to advanced tips. Before I started using Shreddage, I actually went through the videos myself, and I'll just make sure to put a link to that in the description. Create your own custom MIDI chart. When you first load up Shreddage, make sure to take note of all the key switches. Your DAW is going to have an option to map out your MIDI piano roll, and I suggest you make use of that. As you can see here, I've mapped out all of the key switches in Reaper. This is going to make writing a lot faster and remove a lot of the guesswork for you. Turn off anti-repetition. Again, this could be user error, but I've found that anti-repetition doesn't seem to work for me. I end up getting repeated notes or phasing issues when I'm double tracking. So if you're finding you're having those same issues, just give this a try and shut off anti-repetition. Only double track using guitars 1 and 4. In the same vein as the last tip, I only use 1 and 4, and that's because when I tried using 1 and 2, 3 and 4, or just all 4 guitars, I was getting a lot of phasing issues. This was solved by just making one guitar, guitar 1, and the other guitar, guitar 4. I personally never quad track live guitars, so I don't feel like I'm really losing anything by not having the option to quad track with Shreddage. Now I'm going to play a quick video example of something that I'm in the middle of working on and hasn't necessarily been utilizing all of the next few tips that I'm giving you. This is something where the first half I've given a lot more attention to, a lot more thought to, there's more of a hands-on process, but the second half is just kind of thrown together. I'm not really manually editing things, and it doesn't necessarily sound bad all the way through, but it doesn't necessarily sound good either. There's definitely points where you can tell that Shreddage is playing, and I either need to completely remove them and find a good alternative for them, or I need to do a lot of work to get them up to where they sound very good. Use slides, hammer-ons, and tapping frequently. Most guitar players aren't fretting every single note with a different finger, or playing the guitar like it's a piano. If you want a more synthetic guitar sound, you won't really need to utilize these features. However, if you want to get that real player sound, you need to take the time to consider these things. What I suggest is just watching videos of guitar players' hands and playthrough videos. If you're not a player yourself, you're going to be able to see what their right hand and their left hand are doing, and then you can tend to mimic that in Shreddage. If you are a guitarist, I would treat Shreddage as if it's a real guitar player that you need to explain down to every fine detail what you want them to do. Shreddage is not expressive on its own, but you can certainly make it very expressive. Avoid writing fast, repetitive notes. Shreddage does have a tremolo switch that does work very well. However, when you program 8th or 16th notes that play the same thing back to back, you can definitely hear the limitations of the instrument. You might think this is a bad thing, but finding a creative way to play the chord or the string of repeated notes will generally yield more interesting results. Take control of the 4-string options to get the sound that you want. Don't be afraid to play around with the sound you want. Keep in mind, one string can play pretty much 2 full octaves on that guitar. A lot of modern guitarists will want to stick to the lower strings and move up the neck as the notes get higher, rather than staying at the top of the neck and moving down the strings. Since you have the options, just consider playing with them. There's not exactly a wrong move. If you let Shreddage just do all the work for you, you're not going to get the human expression that you're looking for. At the same time, you aren't bound by the limitations of a human. If you want to play the first fret on the first string and then immediately jump to the highest string and the highest fret, you can just do that. Sure, a human isn't going to be able to do that, and maybe you want a more human sound, but if that sounds good, it sounds good and you can do it. Lastly, don't be lazy, humanize everything, and have a good time. Going back to Shreddage lacking expression is no fault of the product. The guitar's not just going to play you a masterpiece, and it's not going to be the death of all guitar players. You still need to write good music. So, get in there and make it sound great. Yes, it's gonna take time. Yes, it can be frustrating, but it's worth it. If you're just making a demo to send out, or if you want a more robotic sound, you may not want to dig into every note because it's just not worth your time. If you want Shreddage to play what you've composed as if it were a real guitar player that you've hired, you need to put in the time. Shreddage is less than $200 and you have nothing but the time to play with it. You don't need to buy a guitar, you don't need to learn how to play, you don't need to hire a guitar player, and you don't need to worry about sending tracks back and forth with someone because you just want to make minor tweaks to it. You simply tell Shreddage what you want it to do, and it does it. You just have to take the time to tell it every little thing you want it to do. And that's really the best and worst part about the product, is there are so many things you can do, and you need to tell it to do so many things. Alright, that was it for all my tips, so I really hope that helped you out. Hopefully it made you think about some things that you weren't considering before, answered some questions that you might have had, or maybe you just had a very strange problem that I found a creative solution for. I'm sorry if any of this video was a bit strange when it comes to the editing or maybe the voiceover. I'm very new to this process, and I make music, I sing over music, but I don't normally sit in front of a computer without any sort of person or a script there to just go off of. I'm pretty much just sitting here talking into the ether right now. But I have a whole new rig that allows me to make these kinds of videos without my computer just bursting into flames and me losing all the progress. So if there's something that you want to see from me specifically, whether it be the creative process or Shreddage related, let me know in the comments. Right now I don't exactly have a list of ideas or questions to go over, so any video that I'd make beyond this would just be me rambling, kind of like I am right now, and I'd really like to keep things structured because editing this sucks. But I love you for watching this video, and hopefully it's just fading out now, music's just playing me out, and the video is just ending. So it's not awkward and abrupt, it just ends just like